Hello everyone, my name is Teresa Aguilar Alcaraz, and the topic of my presentation is the Chavez Ravine case, which was against the Dodgers, known today as Los Angeles Dodgers. So there's a whole history behind them coming here and being part of Los Angeles now that little people are aware of the whole history behind that. So I found it very interesting because of the eminent domain use of this in this case. It was not the best use of it, and a lot of critics did take it like an abuse of the eminent domain law. So I want to speak about that a little bit. But before we get started, I do want to go over the history of the Chavez Ravine, which this was located in a valley of a few miles from downtown Los Angeles. Chavez Ravine was home to the generation of Mexican Americans named for Julian Chavez, county supervisor in the 1800s. Chavez Ravine was a self-sufficient and tight-knit community, a rare example of a small town life within a large urban metropolis. So this whole ravine, this Chavez Ravine, was actually Mexican American people that were actually settled there. They had churches, a school. They had a way of living very similar to the culture in Mexico. They had their homes established. They owned their homes outright, and many of them were actually, they made a whole living out of that, even though everybody considered them, like a poor society, kind of a slum. That's what they were referred to at times. But they made a great living out there on their own. So what comes about is the Dodgers before Los Angeles. So they were known as the Brooklyn Dodgers. They were an American Major League Baseball team, active primarily in the National League from 1884 until 1957. After which the club moved to Los Angeles, California, where it continues its history today. So they wanted a new stadium, and they were looking for the best location for that. And they came to visit here. We're taken on a tour of the whole Chavez Ravine, which was, back then, it was pretty much an abandoned place, because with the whole help of Walter Wilkinson, he actually was rallying people up, trying to convince them to sell their homes, to move out, with the promise of low-income housing, and that they were going to be getting priority over the housing once everything was put together. A lot of people had already moved out, but there were still some families there that decided to stay there. And this Walter O'Malley, he actually wanted the stadium, went through a lot of ordeal, a lot of battles into to getting it. And when the city wouldn't give up on it, because originally the whole promise to the people that were being evicted from their homes, they were being told they were going to be having low income housing, and that was the promise they had, that they were going to be like one of the first people to go there and to get that. And when that didn't happen, and the announcement of a whole new stadium being built in lieu of all of that was promised, there was a lot of chaos. And a lot of people were angry, and then the taxpayers came in. They didn't want to pay for a new stadium, and going from court to court, trying to get some kind of settlement. There were still people actually tenting out in those abandoned homes, which they were, originally evicted from, and they decided to never leave and continue to fight and fight and fight and stay there for their homes. So the last appeal that went actually to the Supreme Court was the Los Angeles City versus the Dodgers owner, where they wanted to, to just make the court understand, that the use of a new ballpark was not actually for public use, as the eminent domain states, a legal strategy that allows a federal or local government to seize private property for public use was not being done. This was mainly done for private gain, and that's the way they were looking at it. A new ballpark was going to bring a lot of income and a whole new team, and I guess jobs and all of that. And that's the way that O'Malley was presenting it. We are bringing a lot of stuff. We're doing something with a whole pile of dirt that has been sitting there for almost 10 years now with nobody doing anything, and the money was never used up for any public use anyhow. So he was willing to pay for the stadium. He asked for no more money, and apparently the only thing he was asking for was extra property that was not originally on the contract, and that's what the third appeal came to, where that was the wording was changed, and everything was behind the scenes, a lot of political stuff that went on with this case. But ultimately the Supreme Court, they awarded the case to the O'Malley, and he got his ballpark. And today, as we all know, the Dodgers make a lot of money, they create a lot of jobs, and they're doing great here in LA for us. And in the long run, unfortunately those people were evicted. They lost their homes, and they really didn't get the fair price for their homes. And that's the whole outcome of this case. But in all, the eminent domain in this case, I do feel that it was abused, and it was used for political gain and for private ownership and private gain of the owner of the Los Angeles Dodgers. My humble opinion. Thank you so much for your time.